Seems like this is like a tipping point on the scope and the reach of big tech now, with the debate being sparked globally. Um, we have a very appropriate picture of President Trump here, in terms of the reactions that we are likely to see around the world and not just in the US. And with more coercive measures like Parler being de-supported by Amazon on the AWS servers, which was announced like an hour ago, I think the whole debate will become much more serious. I think there are several aspects to it, or several, let's say, threats to this, right? So one debate is freedom of speech. I actually think it's a very weak argument, because theoretically freedom of speech kind of an argument applies to government entities. All said and done, Twitter is a private entity. So uh, in the strictest sense, you can say that yes, I mean, even if they are being hypocritical, or even if they are being judgmental, or even if they are applying their policy selectively, well, they are only responsible to their shareholders. So as long as they think that they are doing the right thing in terms of maximizing the value of the firm, um, it's end of the day, it's a private firm, right? So I think the whole freedom of speech argument can have a moral or a ethical kind of threat to it, but really it has no practical utility when it comes to applying it to a private firm, because Twitter is not the government. Unfortunately, it has got government-like characteristics now, which is the second question to debate, which is that is Twitter a public digital utility, or like a PDU as we call it, right, in India? So whether it is a utility or not at all also in question. Perhaps more so in the US, where the government arms or the communication has always been much more dependent on social media compared to, let's say, India, where things are still evolving. I mean, all said and done, Twitter is largely a narrative setting tool and not really a platform of daily discussions with just about 4-5 crore Indians, or 4-5 crore handles, I would say. May not be the same number of people, could be lesser number of people active on the platform in India as such. So I think the question the governments will have to answer world over is whether Twitter is a utility or not. And if it's a utility, then what kind of a public responsibility it holds, which could be similar to the functions of the government, right? So I think that is a question to be answered or explored by different governments. Which brings us to the next point, which is that if it's a utility, should it be a platform utility, or should it be like treated like a publisher? And the whole debate which President Trump himself sparked by saying that he will remove the safe harbor under the so-called Rule 230 in the FCC laws around how these platforms are treated. The fact is he didn't do anything about it apart from his bluster, which I think probably is also the undoing of his digital existence, that he spoke much more than what he actually did. But I think that question will be debated in each country as to what is the extent of platformization of these tech firms, and where should the buck stop. Now, even if you treat them as a publisher, then you have to actually concede some, let's say, discretion to them, right? So because when you're a publisher, there has to be some kind of a self-regulation or some kind of following a government, let's say, rules and regulations, as it applies to print or TV media, which is also, by the way, self-regulated, right? They also are not really regulated by the government, at least in India. So in that sense, even if you designate them as a publisher, it may not change anything much, because there are complaints against even TV and print media in India, and so on. And once you call them publisher anyway, I mean, even if you call them platform, the fact is that the expectation will always remain that they will censor certain types of speeches, right? So, for example, can the platform then be open to create a account by, let's say, a terrorist organizations? Obviously, no one wants that, right? So then, but then already brings in the characteristics of a publisher in that sense, because the line is pretty thin where in terms of what censorship a platform should allow without becoming a publisher. I think that's a very difficult one to define in an automatic fashion or in a rules defined way, because these things are very contextual to what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And of course, because tech and narrative will always be ahead of rules and regulations. It's a fact. So you cannot regulate or define rules which may be relevant even 2-3 years from now. So I think this whole debate of where the buck stops and where the buck starts with the as a publisher, this is a very difficult one to really automate and codify, and this will haunt all countries. I mean, it's more than the US. The countries like India or Israel or Indonesia or Brazil, where these platforms are growing, and some of them, uh, I mean, these are the markets which these companies look forward to in terms of owning. These countries will have a difficult time making that decision. Which then brings us to the other last point, which is that what are the alternatives, right? Because if you cannot regulate them, or if, in a sensible way or in a practical way, are there alternatives available? So I think that again, alternatives can be at multiple levels, right? So there could be an application layer alternative where you can say that, okay, instead of Twitter, I'll go to Parler. But then what happens when the infrastructure layer bans the application layer, which is happening in case of Parler as we speak, where Amazon AWS is saying that we will essentially not let Parler be online, Amazon and Google. So in that case, the alternatives then have to be at the level of, let's say, the app stores, or at the level of the hosting infrastructure and so on. So I think the whole conundrum of going Atmanirbhar, so as to speak, is quite a complex one. I mean, you can start going self-reliant on apps is relatively easier, and we do have that already in India in terms of apps like Tutor, for example, or in the US with Signal, as what became popular in the last couple of days after the Trump ban and the change of terms of conditions for WhatsApp. But I think that part is relatively simpler, but may not be foolproof. Even at a level of, let's say, an app store where Google can selectively ban an app, but let's say another app store allows them. But what if Google bans the app store itself, the entire app store itself, right? So of an independent party. So I think those questions will remain. So basically, even ultimately, unless you hit the core of it, which is the hardware and the software itself, the OS itself. But that's a long journey, and it could be a very impractical and very costly journey for any country to invest in per se. I think the only logical alternative could be like, what Balaji S had tweeted yesterday, which is around having a sovereign app store, to say that a country can basically create its own apps hosted inside the country, data residing inside the country with no access for big tech. And even if it doesn't solve, or even if it does not mirror, let's say, the functionality or the openness or the network effects of a Twitter or a Facebook, at least there's a national alternative available, right? So I think his suggestion was very practical, that just go and copy whatever these guys have done, create an app which is functional, and then let people just signal to people that they need to migrate there. So maybe perhaps that's the way to go. But I think it's a much larger question, which is unfortunately very urgent at this stage. I'm not so much concerned about the election in India, which a lot of people use as a marker for 2024. I think this is a much bigger problem, which will haunt generations to come, right? So I think it should not be linked to the next election per se, but it is something to think about for the government of India and for the governments around the world outside of the US.